Hi everybody, my name is Joshua Owen.
My name is Luca Williams.
And we're with Global U. And this year we're going to take you on what I think is going to be a really exciting journey as we walk alongside you and kind of the story that you're going to embark on this year for the next 9 months. So today we want to introduce you to Luca. Luca is going to be with you guys probably bi-weekly as we're kind of telling the story of Global U. And today we just want to introduce you, kind of your background, why you came on Global U, and what you're hoping to get out of it.
All right, sounds good. Let's get started.
Awesome. So very first question. Just not everybody might even be aware of what Global U is. So for you, in your own words, like why Global U? What is Global U to you?
Yeah, so Global U to me is just this program that is meant to grow you as a person in every aspect of who you are. Physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, intellectual, it just is all around, grows every part of you, which no other school or organization I've seen really does that.
Yeah. It's interesting because we kind of pitch it, like in our final interview, you were in Thailand when I did your final interview, or I was in Thailand when I did your final interview. We were in Chiang Mai, and what we kind of do in this final interview is we actually pitch it to people like, okay, if you want to change the world, which is what we're about, it's going to be this 10-year journey. And Global U is only 9 months into that 10-year journey. But we kind of set it up like that, right? Where it's like, okay, this is going to be one of the hardest things you can do. If you're trying to do missions and you're trying to do entrepreneurship, like either one of those on its own is really hard, but doing it together takes a special type of person. You're a special type of person because you're here and you made it through the interview process. So bring me to that. Like when we're having that conversation, that final interview, and you're applying, like why are you applying? Why was this something in your life that you wanted to go pursue?
Yeah, when I signed up for Global U, it's a long story, but I was in a space where I had this belief that I wanted to grow and I wanted to create something. I wanted to change the world in some way, and I did not have any of the tools to do it. I didn't have the setting. Just the environment I was in was not conducive to that at all. And so I saw Global U as an amazing opportunity to just, here's tool sets. We're going to build these tools for you, and we're going to have you build your own tools, and you'll build something else tomorrow.
Absolutely. And you got it. You actually have a background, right? So like we teach entrepreneurship, we teach computer programming, but you had a background in robotics. Tell me about that background a bit.
Yeah. So when I was in high school, I did this thing called FRC, First Robotics Competition, and that was a high school level competition, and you had 6 weeks to build a robot, and that's just where I learned a bunch of the skills that I have now, of like mechanical assembly, soldering, computer, like programming, electronics, that kind of stuff, physics, and we worked in this team for 6 weeks every year annually, and the game changed, and we actually had 1 year. I think it was my junior, sophomore year, where we actually made a robot that was so good it broke the robot that NASA built.
Pretty good deal.
I don't condone breaking other people's things, but
yeah,
I was very proud of that.
Yeah, if you break NASA's robot, you're pretty good at what you do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting. So you have that background. So you have a background in robotics. So, we've talked about computer science a little bit, and we'll get into entrepreneurship as well. But there is this interesting facet to Global U where it's like, okay, why are we doing mission work? Why are we doing programming, and how are we doing entrepreneurship, and how does this stuff tie together? So on the spiritual side of this, I know you've got an interesting story. Like, was that a part of your decision why you want to go on Global U, and why? Like, why did the spiritual, knowing who Jesus is, why was that part of kind of the draw?
Yeah, actually the story is that I was talking to my sister, a lot of things happened in my life where I did not want to, I didn't want to interact with Christ, the church, anything having to do with that. I didn't realize there was this concept of, having a relationship with God. I always thought it was, angry men in the clouds waiting to crush you if you sin.
Yeah.
And I remember I just saw I just saw so much pain in the world and in my own personal life and in my family that I was like, there's no way that a good God would ever allow this. And so I just when I was about 16, 17, I just like crammed that into a box, shoved it to the back corner of my mind, and I was like, I'll address that later.
Yeah.
And so I did have to address that. And it was also part of like who I was. It's kind of tied into like a lot of like my backstory, a lot of the pain that I've had personally in my life, of just like surviving instead of living. And it got to the point where I was like, I don't want to survive anymore. I like this. Making a living and being alive is not enough. I want to feel alive.
Yeah.
And so I remember I like never really told my story or like who I was to like really anyone, and I did one day. I told my entire family like like who I was as a person, each person individually. I sat all my siblings down, and I remember when I was doing that with my sister Lexi, I told her all my story. She's like, I felt like a lot of the same pain, and we just started talking about just random small talk, and she brought up her housemates who were actually involved with G42, which is very close to Global U, and she was like, oh, Global U sounds like it was built for you. Like, you got this idea, you've got like ideas, you've got innovation, you've got like skill set, but you don't have anywhere to sharpen and use them. Yeah. And she also was very aware that I was not into the idea of Christianity or Jesus or Christ or getting involved with any kind of church whatsoever, because I didn't want any association with that. And so she invited me over for dinner, and I was like, all right, cool, free food. And I kind of just did to satisfy her asking to be like, okay, I'll look into it. And so they sat me down, Britton Mage, this wasn't in their bench, I swear. They sat me down and they told me a lot about like what Global U is, what it stands for, why it was made. And I was like, cool, like, just showed up for the free food. But over the next couple months, it kind of just like grew in the back of my mind. It didn't feel like my own idea being pushed into my brain. It felt more of like someone being like, hey, Global U might be a good idea. And it just slowly became louder and louder, like, hey, Global U. Over time, and I was like, and I realized at the time there was God's voice telling me, this might be this is an opportunity you want to invest in. This is something you want to do. Oh. And I remember I made this deal with God. I was like, all right, fine. I will apply to Global U, and if I get in, I will go. And if I go, then I will, if I commit to it, then I will try to learn who you are. Yeah. And so that opportunity really just, me losing that bet was probably one of the best things that's ever happened in my life. So, and obviously I'm here, so obviously you know how that turned out.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of what drew me to Global U in terms of the spiritual aspect of because we have this community here at Global U of it's not just about, memorizing the scripture. It's about your relationship with God. It's about your relationship with the people around you. It's not about, every people coming in and being like, oh, I'm holier than thou. It's like, no, we're all human. We're all going to absolutely screw up. We're all going to make horrible mistakes. We all have our own past. We all have our own stories. We all have our own pain.
Yeah.
But we celebrate that. We celebrate vulnerability. And we celebrate vulnerability and growth. And I love that about this community.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I mean, that's, honestly, guys, this is one of the things we want to invite you into this year, and one of the big reasons we're doing that is just to introduce this community to you. I think we've got a unique culture, and we've got a unique kind of abnormal tribe going on here where we're all different. We've all got different skill sets. We all come from different backgrounds. There's a few things in common, we love the Lord. We want to know who He is. We want to know if the Bible's real. But we also want to do something in the world, right? We got this weird skill set where we're builders that don't necessarily fit into traditional missions. But this is kind of a place for that. And for you guys, we just want to invite you in, introduce you to the mentors, introduce you to our community and to our alumni and people who are pouring into our lives. and show you what it's like to kind of go on this growth journey. So thanks, guys, for tuning in. We'll be doing this every 2 weeks, and Luca will be leading the next one, bringing in more people, talking about the last 2 weeks. So see you guys next time.